What I'm trying to say is that when you look back at his journey, it's actually remarkable. For a player of his quality and natural ability, I just can't quite understand how so many clubs overlooked him earlier in his career. He was clearly capable of doing special things, yet somehow he slipped through the cracks for a long time. You have to give a huge amount of credit to QPR for being the ones who spotted the potential, gave him the chance, and stuck with him. Without that move, who knows where he might have ended up. Then, of course, Crystal Palace deserve recognition as well for having the belief to pay around 20 million for him at a time when some people still doubted whether he would make it at the very top level. From there, he worked his way up step by step, and now he's finally at a club and in a position that he always wanted to reach. He's arrived at the stage he dreamed of, but perhaps part of the reason it took so long is down to him as well. You know what I mean, sometimes a player's own decisions and circumstances shape that path as much as talent does. That's why, Roy, you have to ask the question. If he was really as good as we all believed, why did it take so long? The truth is, talent alone is never enough. Everyone in football has seen it time and time again at the biggest clubs. There are loads of young lads who seem destined for stardom, but not all of them make it. Some lose focus, others can't handle the pressure, and some never quite find their place in the system. So it isn't just about ability. You've got to apply it properly, adapt to different roles, and prove you belong at that level. And that leads us to the present, where the debate is about where exactly he fits in the team. If he nails down a position, what's it going to be? Looking at the way Arsenal play right now, it almost feels like Declan Rice is occupying that deeper role he used to thrive in. So perhaps the best place for him is out wide, probably on that left-hand side, drifting in from the wing. When you ask him, he's never been too concerned. He's just said he wants to play, stamp his authority on the team, and go from there. That sort of attitude is refreshing, because it shows he's willing to adapt for the greater good of the squad. Speaking of which, we may as well get into it since the Liverpool game on Sunday is looming large. Everyone's expecting Ures to feature, and with Saka unavailable it looks like Madueke will come in to cover that right-hand side. The question then becomes, will Arteta stick with him on the left, or bring in Trossard or Martinelli? It's a big decision, because Martinelli didn't even get on the pitch in the last match, and you'd normally expect him to start in a fixture of this magnitude. Personally, I'd like to see him start, because away at Anfield you have to go there with the mentality of winning. You might not absolutely need the 3 points in terms of the bigger picture, but the intention has to be there. You can't arrive at Anfield and play on the back foot. You have to make a statement, and that means fielding your most dangerous players. Now, when it comes to Ures, opinions are split. Some people think he looks clumsy and a little awkward at times, but I actually like what he offers. He's strong, he's physical, and he gives Arsenal something they haven't really had for a long while, a proper number 9. You only need to look at his movement at Old Trafford. A lot of fans said he was poor that day, but I saw runs that reminded me Arsenal have lacked that sort of striker for years. He makes those classic center-forward movements, darting in behind, attacking the space, putting defenders under pressure. Even his goal the other week summed him up perfectly. It wasn't the most elegant finish you'll ever see, but it was instinctive, unorthodox, and exactly what an old-fashioned striker should do. That's why I believe, by the end of the season, he could easily have 20 goals to his name. People might keep pointing out the rough edges in his game, but if he's scoring consistently, those same critics will have to admit he's been a vital part of the team. And yes, he might score a lot of those goals against mid-table or lower-table sides, but that isn't a weakness, that's actually what you need if you want to win the league. You can't only rely on the big games. You need a forward who punishes the teams you're expected to beat. Add penalties into that tally, and suddenly he's got an extra 5 or 6 goals across a season without even being at his absolute best. Of course, the other side of the discussion is whether Arsenal's attack as a whole has improved enough to challenge seriously this season. Last year, their defense was stronger than Liverpool's, but Liverpool's attack looked more dangerous. If Arsenal can keep that defensive solidity while also getting more goals from players like Ures, Martinelli, and hopefully Saka when he's fit, then they could close that gap. The worry from a Liverpool perspective is that their defense might not hold up as well this year, especially if Van Dijk and company can't maintain consistency. If Arsenal continue to be the best defensive team in the league and now add a striker who scores regularly, then they're absolutely in the title race. And it's worth remembering how fine the margins are in football. His career is proof of that. Had Havertz not picked up an injury in training back then, Tottenham would have signed him instead, and his whole story would have been different. Sometimes it really does come down to those sliding door moments. He's also someone who openly credits his faith, genuinely believing that everything happens for a reason and that his path unfolded the way it was meant to. You can see how much it means to him every time he steps out on the pitch. When he made that walk out of the tunnel at his new club, he could barely contain his smile. It was clear that he felt he'd finally arrived. And that's the bigger picture here. Arsenal have managed to bring in a player who not only offers a new dimension on the field, but also clearly loves being at the club. You see it in his celebrations, his personality, even in the little quirks like him constantly touching his hair, a nervous habit that's already been picked up by social media. He's someone the fans will warm to, and when you have that connection between the players, the supporters, and the ex-legends of the club like Henry welcoming him in, it creates an energy that can carry the team further. It's something Liverpool, for example, seem to be missing right now, that connection with their past. Arsenal have built it back up, and you can feel the difference. So the real question is whether all of this, the journey he's been on, the qualities he brings, the hunger to prove himself, will combine to make the difference for Arsenal this season. That brings us to the present, and the question everyone's asking, where exactly does he fit in this Arsenal side? Looking at Mikel Arteta's system right now, it almost feels like Declan Rice is occupying that deeper midfield role he once made his own. That pushes him slightly further up or out wide. For me, the most natural place seems to be on that left-hand side, drifting inwards from the wing, using his energy and drive to cut inside and create problems. When you ask him, though, he's not bothered. He's been clear that all he wants is to play, to make his mark, and to build from there. That's the mentality you want, a player desperate to contribute in whatever way the manager sees fit. And that mindset is going to be tested immediately with a massive challenge coming up this weekend, Liverpool away at Anfield. Everyone knows how tough that ground is, the intensity, the atmosphere, the history of Arsenal struggling there in recent years. With Saka injured, the expectation is that Madueke will come in to cover the right wing. Then the big decision falls on who plays on the opposite flank. Do you go with Trossard, Martinelli, or stick with the new man? Martinelli didn't even feature in the last game, which was surprising, and you'd expect him to be chomping at the bit for a start. Trossard, meanwhile, is always a safe option, tidy, experienced, capable of doing a solid job. But for a game of this size, personally, I'd like to see Martinelli out there. You don't go to Anfield to sit back and accept whatever comes. You go there with the intention to win, even if a draw wouldn't be the end of the world. The message from Arteta has to be, we're here to make a statement. Now, about Jurez. People are split. Some watch